Hey guys, welcome to my first ever gig review, and today I'm going to be talking about New Found Glory on their 20th anniversary UK tour. So New Found Glory are a pop-punk band hailing from Florida, USA. They're kind of alongside bands like Blink-182, Sum 41 and Good Charlotte as one of the big pop-punk bands from the early 2000s. And 2017 not only celebrates the band's 20th anniversary, but also the release of their 9th album, Makes Me Sick. And to celebrate the 20th anniversary, the band have embarked on a world tour in which each night they played 2 albums from their discography in entirety. I've been a big fan of the band for a couple years now, especially with their album Sticks and Stones, which I consider to be one of the best pop-punk albums ever made. So when they added an extra date in my home city, I had to go. I saw the band at the Portsmouth Pyramids Centre where they played the album Sticks and Stones and Not Without a Fight in full. Although I am a fan of the band, to be completely honest, I had very low expectations actually going into the gig. I've heard nothing but bad things about them live, and the live videos I've seen online of them also were not very good. But I was hopeful that they would be good, and lo and behold, they put on a really great, fun show. Opening up with the song Understatement, a song that the band generally open their sets with, the band instantly proved that even though they're in their late 30s, they still have that energy that they had 15 years ago when they first recorded the album. During this song and every single song during the set, the band were all over the stage and getting the crowd involved. Vocalist Jordan Pundit constantly called for the crowd to sing back, and with full force the crowd screamed every single lyric of this song back. I will say him kind of getting everyone to sing did get a little bit old later on in the set, and it's something that he normally does. I think it works better in this than it has done before, where it seems like he's not singing just because he's out of breath or doesn't really want to sing. Here he had a lot of passion and seemed to be really into it, and it seemed like he was trying to get the crowd into it as well, so I could look past it. However, there was one problem I had with this song in particular, is that the song really lacks those great backing vocals that were on the original song. The original song had this really great vocal harmony in the chorus, and when they did it live, no one really did it. It seemed like they were more focused on running around and jumping and stuff than actually singing the song, which was a bit of an issue with this song. But luckily for the other songs, they did get more into the performance side, and they tried to be as good musically as they were visually as well. And one thing that I was actually surprised about during this show was how close to the album that the performances actually sounded. Like, there were moments where everything sounded almost identical to the original album recordings, which was definitely not something I was expecting, to be completely honest. The guitar tones especially were spot on and sounded exactly how they did originally, which was especially cool to hear during songs like Sunny and Forget My Name from Sticks and Stones, which start off with these really crisp, clean tones with a slight bit of delay that isn't too noticeable but adds a lot of character to the sound. Little things like that were perfectly recreated when they played them live, which I was definitely blown away by, because I didn't expect them to do that at all. I didn't think they'd have that much attention to detail with those little things on the album and recreating them live, so to see them done was a lot of fun. However, if there's one problem that I kind of had with the guitars live, is that sometimes the sound does kind of lack, considering that they were a 2-guitar band at the time of the recording of these 2 albums, and now they're just a 1-guitar band. Although for the most part it wasn't too noticeable and you could look past it, with some songs it could get really distracting and it took a lot of the power out the instrumentation. Especially the songs Don't Let This Be The End and Don't Let It Pull You Down from Not Without a Fight. But on a lot of the songs the band actually managed to fill out the sound, which was really good to hear. I've heard bands before that have kind of been in a similar situation where on the recording they've had 2 guitars but live they've only had 1, and it's sounded really flat and it's really lacked a lot of what it had on the recording. But Although there were a few moments where it did lack, for the most part they actually managed to fill out the sound and it sounded much more rounded. To be honest, Jordan's vocals seemed a little bit off during the first few songs. It seemed like he was kind of struggling to sing really well while he was running around and jumping and stuff, and it sounded like it was really affecting the sound. However, a few songs deep it all started to change and he actually started to sound really, really good, and when we got to the track right where we left off, he sounded just spot on. Speaking of this song, I actually thought on the original recording of the song he sounded absolutely awful. His vocals were just so underwhelming. It almost sounded like he was ill when recording it, especially compared to how he sounded on the rest of the album. However, live, his vocals actually sounded perfect and it sounded exactly how it should have sounded on that original track. That's the only reason why I'm not too big into that track. I would otherwise really like it, and live, I really, really loved it, and it actually became one of my gig highlights. As well as the tracks from the 2 albums that they played, which were actually printed on 2 full set lists, the band did also throw in a song from their latest album. This song was the single Party on Apocalypse, and I think the band made the song fit perfectly in with the rest of the set list, and it was cool to hear something else from the band's discography. However, I think it would have been nice to hear a couple of songs from the other albums as well, especially since they had a lot of time. They finished quite early considering, and yeah, I think they could have threw in a few more songs in the encore at least. I would have loved to have heard something from the self-titled album or Catalyst, especially the songs Hit or Miss or All Downhill From Here, which are honestly my 2 favourite songs from the band. But I guess I can't really complain too much because they did advertise it as being those 2 albums in full, so the fact that they even played a different song I wasn't really expecting. Something I also really liked about the setlist for the night is how they actually arranged the songs. Instead of playing one album in full and then playing the other one right after that and throwing in a few extra songs in the encore like a lot of bands would do, and bands who I've seen do similar things before have done, the band actually mixed the 2 albums together and they played a 21 song set list with very few breaks in between before leaving for the encore. I honestly think that they had some of the best crowd interaction that I've ever seen, and it was obvious how much they genuinely cared about the fans and cared about making them have a great night. Halfway through the show, guitarist Chad Gilbert even took a break and said that this tour is for the fans, and that was very obvious through not just their crowd interaction, but just everything about the show. There were constant calls for clapping and jumping throughout nearly every single song. However, I think what really ruined it was the crowd. It seemed like only the people right at the front were really involved, and when the band said to jump, it was only those people who did. There was even one point where Chad Gilbert even asked for the audience to create a circle pit, and I looked behind me and literally nothing happened. Everyone just stood still. It was really incredibly awkward to see, and it kind of did ruin some of the experience for me. But the band didn't let that bring them down at all, and they still regularly talked to the fans and thanked them for supporting them across the years, and still got them to sing along to all the songs. For the most part, it seemed like the people who were singing were only really familiar with Sticks and Stones, and barely anyone really seemed to know the songs from Not Without a Fight. And sadly, I have to say that did include me. To be completely honest, I only actually listened to Not Without a Fight the day before the gig, mostly because I heard a couple of tracks before from the album and really didn't like it, and it kind of put me off. However, the songs that I didn't like really grew on me, and I ended up falling in love with the album, and despite only listening to the album 3 times before the gig, I still really enjoyed hearing the songs live, and I still sang along to the few songs that I actually did know. The band returned to the stage for a 3-track encore, ending the show off with the band's most well-known song, My Friends Over You. Despite quite a few people leaving before the band returned, the audience was still the most captivated and energetic that they were that whole night. It was obvious that a lot of people there weren't really familiar with any other songs and just kind of went for that one song, which was kind of a shame. An energetic audience, in my opinion, really has an impact on the full experience, and a lack of that can sometimes really ruin a gig. I've seen some really amazing bands live who have been so great but had such an awful audience that it just ruined the entire night and made it less enjoyable for me. But luckily I think all throughout the gig the band actually did make up for the audience's lack of energy by ripping through their 24-song set list without ever slowing down. And the fact that they kept that energy going all throughout is pretty commendable. They don't actually have a single slow song on either of those two albums, so they pretty much just played fast song after fast song for over an hour and a half at least. And during the last song they even got a couple of younger fans up on stage to join them, which I thought was really cool to see. Whenever I've seen bands bring audience members up onto the stage, they've normally just ended up pushing them off to the side and making them watch it from there. For example, this is something that Sum 41 did when I saw them earlier this year, so it was really cool to see the band actually getting fans involved with the song. Supporting the gig were the British pop-punk band Rome. I will admit that before seeing them I wasn't even really the biggest fan, and honestly their performance didn't really change my opinion. I just feel like the band didn't really do anything special or different at all. They sounded like pretty much every single pop-punk band ever. Some songs were quite derivative also, like Dead Weight, which although it is probably one of, if not my favourite song from the band, it really sounded like something directly ripped off of Does It Look Infected by Sum 41. Their performance in general just didn't change my opinion about the band at all. The vocals really sounded quite quiet, so you could barely hear what he was singing a lot of the time, and there were also moments where there were notes that should have been held but he moved so far away from the microphone or it got cut short because he just stopped singing that we couldn't really hear anything, and it kind of got a little bit tiresome later on. The second vocalist also was pretty much silent for the first couple of songs before the people mixing actually turned him up. Plus, only one of the two guitars were actually audible. I literally couldn't hear anything from the lead guitarist at all. The mixing for this band was just really bad. But honestly, that seems to be a trend of bands I've seen at the Pyramid Centre in general. The support acts always seem to be mixed really badly compared to the main act, and it's a real shame because it really ruined the band and has ruined other support acts that I've seen that have actually been better than the main act. I think if it sounded a little bit better I may have gotten a little bit more into it, plus the audience were literally completely dead. I don't think anyone really moved at all, and I know that audiences do rarely get into support acts at gigs, but this was on a completely new level. During their set, the venue was only actually half full, and every time the band asked people to jump or create a circle pit, everyone just stood there and did nothing. It seemed to actually really irritate the vocalist at all, who seemed like he was getting more and more fed up as the set progressed. I didn't think every single song they did was that bad, to be completely honest. Songs like Dead Weight, which I talked about earlier, Playing Fiction from their upcoming second album, and even their closing song Hopeless Case, I thought all sounded really good, and I got really into them because I quite like all three of those songs. It's just kind of a shame that the audience and mixing ended up making the performance a little bit forgettable. Seeing New Found Glory was a great experience for me, not just because their performance was a lot of fun to watch and sounded great, but also because I got to hear one of my favourite pop-punk albums front to back. I probably would have preferred to have gone to one of the Sticks and Stones and Catalyst shows, considering they're my two favourite albums by the band, but I'm happy that I got to hear one of the albums at least. Although I did actually buy the ticket while drunk one night, and I thought the show that they were performing was those two albums, so yeah, when I looked at the poster a few months later and realised that it wasn't, I was a little bit disappointed. Yeah, that was a sad discovery. But regardless, the night as a whole was incredibly fun and probably the most fun I've had in weeks, possibly even months. The band were on point and absolutely killed it all throughout. From what I've seen of live videos of the band before and what I've heard from people who've been to their gigs previously, it seems like the band are actually back to being how they used to be when they first started out. It seems like they're actually good live again, which is really nice to see. If you get a chance to see them on this current tour, I'd recommend going, because from the sounds of things, the band seem to be better than they've been in a long time. So yeah, I recommend going to a show. Thanks for watching this video. It's a new series that I want to start doing because, you know, I thought I've been going to loads of gigs recently that I might as well talk about those gigs. I've got a few more this week and quite a lot over October, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.